introducing Steve Curley with Redmond Economic Development. It's our second time in a meeting today because we had our board meeting this morning, of which I'm a board member as well. So I've known Steve for a while. How long has it been? A year? A year already?
Or, yeah.
A year and a half?
How long has Lee been on the fair board?
No, how long has it? That's
It's been almost
years.
a couple of years, yeah.
3 years?
It's close to that, yeah.
Steve's been around for a while. Excuse me. But Steve is, as many of you know, Redmond Economic Development is an organization that Mr. Don Lee helped form a long time ago. Hi, Don, and sneak in too quietly. But they are tasked with bringing and retaining economic prosperity to Redmond, specifically in our traded sector, and that's kind of like basics. They make things here, they sell it elsewhere. That's just one example because it's so close and so near, and you see their big white, HVAC units stored at the fairgrounds that used to be stored across my office until now it's a gas station. So Steve's going to talk. Steve's talked to us before our club several times, but there's some really neat things I think Steve has to share. And he's doing great work. He brings a lot of background from small business administration, small business development.
Yeah.
7 kids?
11?
11. See, I stopped counting at 3. He's got a lot of kids, and he's a good family man. Very committed to his community and to this organization, of which I am as well. Also a donor. So I'm really excited to have Steve here to present to us. So. Yeah. No, you jump around. Just don't get sideways.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, double duty. He stood in as for our board chair for board meeting this morning at 7:30, and now he's doing his duty here. You can take the rest of the day off, Chris. After this, you're good. You've met your quota. So thank you for having me. I know some of you, I don't know all of you, and if you've seen parts of this presentation in the past, I apologize. But I'll get through that, and I hear there's a lot of questions, and so I'm happy to have a conversation and some Q&A, so we'll kind of roll through the presentation. As Chris said, I've been around Central Oregon since 1985, so I've been here a little while, and my whole family has, all my kids have been born here, and they go from almost 33 to 4, so quite the span. It's a lot of fun. A little crazy, but it's a lot of fun. So I've been in my role at EDCO for almost a year now already, and it's been great. I was on the EDCO board for 9 years, so I was really familiar with the folks and with John, who I stepped in after, and he is, if you don't know, the CEO of our regional organization now, so I work really closely with him, and he's got a lot of background and knowledge. He helps me out whenever I need it, working with companies here in Redmond. So if you're not as familiar with our organization, I'll talk a little bit about our strategic plan. We have 3 focus areas that we look at. Business, it's hard to read that for all of you, so I'll kind of read it for you, but business development, business environment, and sustainable operations. So under business development, we focus on retention, expansion, and recruitment. So the companies that are here, they're growing, need more space. We want to keep them here. A lot of times there's different challenges, so we try to help work through those challenges with them. We have a number of companies that are growing, not just in Redmond, but in Central Oregon. And one of the benefits of being in Redmond is we do have land. We have more land than they do south of us. Prineville has a lot of land, but folks that are growing in Central Oregon, especially if they're in Bend, they tend to gravitate toward Redmond before they want to go further out. So we have a lot of that. There's nowhere for me to grow in Bend, so they begin to look in Redmond. So trying to help facilitate that when there is no place to go in Bend for them. And then recruitment. So this area has grown. I always say, since I've been here, came in 1985, the population of Central Oregon has grown every single year, even through the recessions and the harder times. So people want to live here. That's why many of us are here, right? We enjoy the outdoors and everything that it has to offer. And so we have companies that are looking to move here. Many of them West Coast companies in different sectors. I'll talk a little bit about that further on in the presentation. But this region has attracted and will continue to attract companies because of the lifestyle that we have here. Under business environment, some of the areas that are a little bit tangential, but they're really important in economic development is workforce and education, making sure that when companies do come or they are growing, they need a workforce. They need young folks like the Key Club here who are growing up and eventually will move into the workforce to, they need those folks to employ. So we're helping out there. It's not, we can't do it ourselves, but we certainly can have an influence there. Space, so making sure that there is land in the pipeline that is available, has utilities and infrastructure and roads where a business can come and actually build their business. So that's a long process and it takes a lot of different players to make that happen. So we're really working to make sure that Redmond continues to have space for companies into the future. And then policy. So one of the tools that we have that we can offer a company is tax abatement. So there's a 3-year and a 5-year tax abatement. If they're adding jobs, 5-year, they have to meet certain wage requirements coming in, and with those, we are the facilitator. So we work with companies. Right now, that program, it's a state program, is going to be sunsetting, and we're working with the legislature to get that renewed. So I don't know, there's several bills right now, and we're really focused on that to make sure that we are able to retain that tool. That's a really critical tool for companies that are willing to invest, build a building, purchase equipment, put that in, and grow their business. So we work on the policy side with the legislature when bills come up. So another area we're focused on. And then just internally, our sustainable operations around marketing, board development, staff development, and financial stability internally. And we're in a really good place. When I stepped in, Reddy was in a good situation. We are public-private 501c6, so that means just a little over half of our support comes from the city of Redmond and Deschutes County, and the other half comes from private businesses in the area. Like Chris mentioned, that he's an investor with some of his colleagues in Reddy. So it really takes not just public dollars but private dollars to allow us to do what we do. So that's kind of the makeup of the organization. And if any of you have questions as I go along, go ahead and raise your hand. We can take them as we go, or we can take them after. So I've talked a little bit about this, but just kind of a laundry list of some of the services that we offer. We're a facilitator or a concierge in a lot of cases. When companies are interested in coming to the region, they're not from here, so they don't know what all of us know about the livability and the population, the schools. So do a lot of educating with those companies and try and help them determine if Redmond is going to be a good fit for them. So we have a lot of business intelligence. I'm talking with developers. I'm talking with companies that need more space. So a lot of times we're playing matchmaking, right? Talked to a developer yesterday that has a piece of property and he's trying to figure out what he wants to do with that. And then I'm talking with companies because our vacancy rate is so low, and I'll talk about that in a minute, where maybe we can do some matchmaking here, right? But they're not going to find out any other way, but I kind of have that information behind the scenes and we can make things happen. So that's a real critical role that we play. Site selection, so when a company is looking to locate here, they don't know the lay of the land as well as we do, so I help them figure out, where are 5 acres where I can do what I want to do. And we'll bring brokers into the conversation as appropriate. We're not brokers, but we're here just to kind of help make things happen. And a lot of times we know, not all brokers know what other brokers know, so just kind of being that hub of information. Debt and equity financing. So we have partners not only in the private sector, in the banking industry, but with Business Oregon, who also helps support economic development through their different loan funds. And so we can bring them into the conversation, especially if there's a gap. They're really good at kind of filling gaps, in terms of if a company doesn't quite qualify for a traditional or conventional financing. So we help out with that. Incentives, I've already talked about incentives along the lines of the tax abatements. Deschutes County also has an economic development loan fund that when a company is adding employees, they can get up to $2,000 per employee, up to $20,000. That's a forgivable loan if they hold those employees for a certain period of time. So Deschutes County is invested in helping companies grow and helping to support that. Workforce development, training, and recruitment. So working closely with COCC and the local high schools on the different programs that are offered so that they're meeting the needs of our businesses. So kind of having that connection with the businesses and being able to communicate back into education about what our region needs is a really important part of what we do, and just other facilitation. So looking at some of the numbers, these are some of the companies that we have assisted over the years. Many of them I'm sure you are familiar with. On average, about 130 firms each year. There's about 200 traded sector companies in Redmond that we work with. But then, different ones have different needs at different times. And so, we obviously help the ones that are in that position. So this is looking at done deals over the last 6 years, actually. When you look at this, going back to 2017, the average 7, 8, 6, 10, 3 in 2021, and 6 in 2022, the pandemic really had an impact. Everything slowed down, but we're starting to gain some momentum again. Last year, 6 projects, 263 jobs, $32 million in capital investment, money that they've invested into facilities, equipment, those types of things. And so those are some of the companies, or those are the 6 that we worked with. BaseX, everybody saw their expansion of the office space that went up. Looks really cool. They're a great company, very committed to Redmond. Sky Service is a FBO out at the airport, the new building that they put in. Medline had an expansion as well. Tiny Watts Solar is a new company to Redmond. They're located here last year, and they make solar panels that go on top of those Mercedes Sprinter vans. So they have a really high quality solution for that. De Leon, printing label company, and then Performance Pro Supply, which is a new building out here over by Neighbor Impact. So that's kind of looking back. Let's look forward a little bit. This is our pipeline. We've got 31 projects in the pipeline that represent potentially almost 3,000 jobs and $562 million in investment.
Can you say that one more time louder?
I can't. I'll say it this way instead of that way. I'm kind of looking this way while I'm talking. I can't read behind me. So 31 projects in the pipeline, almost 3,000 jobs, and a little over $562 million in potential capital investment in those projects. And some of those I've listed below. Bridgemasters is a company that is building out off Greenwood. You probably don't go out there too often, but they make these trucks that have a lift that drop people down so they can work on the side and under bridges to do utilities and stuff like that. It's a very unique truck that they have, and they sell, and then I think they also lease those across the country. And they dug a huge hole in the ground that they're putting a bridge over so they can test their equipment and show how it works. So they're hopefully will be done a little bit later this spring, and that's going to be really fun. We're hoping that we do our Made in Redmond tour in June. We might be able to go see that with folks. Western Bus Sales and Service, so they're a company based in Boring, over in the valley. If you ever drive up, they're on the left side as you're going toward Portland, and they have a pretty big outfit there. So they service school buses, and they also sell school buses. Their operation here is going to be to service buses and sell parts for buses locally. So, you know, small company, but yet a need in the region as the region has grown with all the school districts. They also service beyond just Central Oregon, but they wanted to get a location here closer. Wild Mike's Pizza, I'll talk about that one in a minute. 541 Cabinets is a cabinet shop. So you can see, you know, from larger to smaller, we have a number of projects that are moving forward this year. So this is one that many people have heard of because it was announced probably a year or two ago. Wild Mike's Pizza, they purchased land on the corner of 9th Street and Antler over on the east side. If you remember where that property burned a few summers ago, it burned on their property. So when you're going north on 9th, you can kind of see that burn area. That's their property. This is a third generation company. They're based in Clackamas right now. They distribute pizzas both through school lunch programs, so they work with school districts as well as in the retail field. The last couple of years, when the school districts were not selling lunches, they really expanded more into retail, and they're very cutting edge. Their project got slowed down a little bit. They were supposed to start a year or so ago, but because of supply chain, interest rates, and those factors that everyone has felt, it's pushed them back a little bit. But they should get started here this year, spring, summer. They should start moving dirt. They're going to invest at least $40 million to start. They'll bring 64 jobs over and add another 50 for a total of 114 jobs. Their wages will exceed their wages and benefits will exceed the county average plus 150% of county average. So that's about $85,000 a year. So their average wage will exceed that. So they pay really well. They're investing in some really high-tech equipment to make pizza. I think this will probably be the highest-tech pizza-making company in the country, from what I understand. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they're putting in.
Hey, Steve,
Yeah.
what causes a company like this to relocate here from Corvallis or wherever they come?
Yeah,
What are
the
the primary
Clackamas.
factors?
We've had an interest from a number of companies in the Portland area that
Right.
just don't want to be there anymore.
Uh,
And I think, you know, John worked more on the recruitment side of things, but as I understand it, they wanted to get away from that area, and Redmond is a really good fit. It's family owned, a lot of family type employees that they can bring over and will fit really well into our community. So it's not uncommon to see businesses in the Portland metro area looking to locate over here because they recreate over here, and if they can eventually move their operations here, they'll do that. Basex was another one because they were in the Portland area, and then when Dave Benson came over here, he did that here because he likes Central Oregon. He wanted to be here. So
okay.
and they have about 46 acres. Their first building is going to be about 270,000 square feet, a pretty big building, but they're going to build out a campus. So they talk about building out a campus, which is really cool. They're really invested in the Redmond area. So that's an example of a really cool project that we hope we'll start seeing some activity here in the next few months. So one of the things that slows us down a little bit, let's say, is the vacancy rate. So for 2022, the aggregate vacancy rate on average was 1.54%. So very low vacancy. It's actually come up a little bit because if you've driven on First Street past Neighbor Impact, there's some new flex space there, really nice buildings called the Beacon that just came on, and there's another flex space right close to here, some smaller units that just came online. So we're, the last quarter, we're a little, I think we're 3.34% in terms of our vacancy rate. So it's gone up a little bit. We've seen some inventory come online. There are definitely builders who want to build. The challenge with the interest rates is making it difficult for some of these projects to pencil, and especially with the uncertainty of, you know, when's the Fed going to stop. And so there's that uncertainty that causes people just to say, hey, I'll wait a little longer because I don't want to make a bad investment. So not that they know that getting that built, it's going to get leased, they're going to have tenants, but it's just the cost of getting it filled isn't quite penciling with the interest rates. The interest rates have just made that a little bit more difficult. We got some right on the edge. When you look at the industries in our pipeline, building products, consumer goods, aviation, aerospace are some of the greater ones, but excuse me, across the board we have a lot of diversity. And you know, over the last 10, 15 years, the whole region has experienced more diversity ever since the housing crash and the lumber industry kind of died down. And so people continue to find different ways to make a living here, and it's really helped create a more stable economic environment for companies. It's much broader. And I'll just talk a little bit about aviation aerospace. We have several companies that are interested in our area. The airport being right there is a great advantage for them to get in and out of here. The airspace and you know, the number of days of sunshine to test airplanes and things like that is really a benefit for them as well. And I just last week, so it's a cool story, and you know, keep it anonymous, but a local company that is here that's doing great work said, hey, we have a customer that we make products for, and they would like to potentially locate here or another place in Southern California. So I want you to talk to them, and of course it's like, they'd be great if they came here because we have a customer here, right? And it's in aviation, aerospace, and would probably be looking at land out by the airport. The airport has a lot of land around it that is available for industrial development. The challenge, or not really a challenge, it's just a different approach, is that they cannot sell that land. The FAA does not let them sell that land, so they have to lease it. They lease it for a pretty reasonable rate per square foot, and if it's the right project, they can do a long-term 50, 60, 70-year lease. But not all companies are willing to do a lease, right? They want to own the dirt. They get nervous if they don't own the dirt. But if you are in aviation and aerospace, and you're going to be around an airport, anywhere in the country, that's the situation. They're familiar with that leasing option. And so we have a number of companies that are looking here. Another benefit we have is, you know, those of you that have been around a while remember when Lance Air started, and that really started the industry here in terms of the workforce, the carbon fiber, all the expertise that it takes to make an airplane. We have a lot of that right here in Central Oregon. Of course, they work for different companies. Some of them freelance. Some of them are companies that, you know, outsource and do, you know, sort of private label, if you will. But we do have a base of a workforce here, so that's also attractive to those aviation companies. Looking at projects by type. So right now our recruitment is about 42%, and our business retention and expansion is about 58% of the companies in our pipeline. So really more companies that are already here just needing more space to grow, which is a great, great situation as long as we can continue to accommodate that. And so this is by job count. So looking at companies that have greater than 100 employees, 20%, 21 to 100, 23%, 6 to 20, 40%, and less than 5 employees, about 17%. So it's really, you know, it's not just big companies, it's larger as well as smaller companies that we have in the pipeline. A really nice, diverse from a size perspective. So to begin to wrap up here, you know, the challenges that we're facing are workforce availability. I talked a little bit about that. That's not just our problem. That's a problem in most communities, you know, around the country. It's just available workforce. And, you know, we're continuing to work on that, as well as the workforce education part of it, working with our education partners to make sure that we have a pathway for those, you know, that are focused on advanced manufacturing and the types of businesses that we have here in Redmond. We do have space, it's limited, but we also have space in the pipeline. It's in planning. We have property that will become available once a land swap happens between some property just south of the fairgrounds and just east of 17th Street, but that's being held up by, homelessness, unauthorized campers, however you want to characterize that. People that we want to help, but yet it's a barrier at the moment to getting that land swap done, so we have that land and we really could use that. Just the economic uncertainty, I already spoke to that. And then available housing is another issue. And, you know, if you follow the governor, she said that she wanted to develop 36,000 more units, which is a great thing to say, but to actually make it happen, it's going to take a lot more than just money. It's going to take people. It's going to take, you know, the right kind of people, and so it's a worthy aspiration. I don't know if we'll get there, but at least she's thinking in the right direction. You know, statewide, we do need more housing because while people are coming to Central Oregon, they're also coming to other parts of Oregon as well. So, to sum up, our region continues to draw people and companies. Workforce will continue to be a priority. Our rural nature and outdoor lifestyle are still in high demand. The diversification of our economy has made our region stronger, and no town supports local businesses like Redmond. So with that, I will take questions. Ron?
Yeah, Steve, I guess I want to get right at it, but the big problem is not just the fairgrounds area and 17th Street, but overall attracting companies is our homeless issue.
Yeah.
I know you believe it is. So.
Oh, I know because, yeah, I've talked to companies,
Yeah.
I've shown them property out there, and of course there's people camping on it, and they're like, do I really want to bring my business here where there's people camping? And and so it is an issue. It's been a hindrance for sure.
And that's also an area where there's available land potentially.
It is where there is available land. I mean, some of it is shovel ready, but those are definitely issues. I know, you know, we have a new city council. They're working very diligently. There was a city council session last night where they're talking about time and place for camping, rules, regulations, whatever they call it, and so they know the problem. It's just so complex and it's so hard because you've got people that want help and you want to help those folks. And you've got people that are content with their lifestyle, and that's, you know, there's no accountability. And so that how you address that and what the federal law says you can do and what the state law says you can do really handcuff them to some extent, but they're committed to working on it. And, you know, I'm right there helping however I can, and, you know, because we really do need to get people away from these areas so we can move forward, and because that's going to help keep, you know, if we don't keep focused on that, it's going to have a really negative long-term impact. Yeah. Yes.
Hi, I was curious if you work with the Redmond Chamber of Commerce and how you partner with them, if that's what you do.
Yes, we do. We definitely do. I'm I guess ex officio on their board, and Eric is ex officio on my board. So we work really closely together. And you know, whenever there's outreach to businesses, we kind of tag team on that. If there's certain things we need to get out, whether it's legislative or informational or survey, that kind of a thing. So yeah, we work really closely together. And you made me think of something I was going to talk about, but I didn't have in my slide presentation, is we also host a Youth Career Connect intern here in Redmond. That program is run by EDCO regionally. So there's someone that's Culver Madras. We have Bree Wilkins here in Redmond, Larry Holman in Bend, Lapine, and she's doing a fantastic job of placing interns, working with all the local high schools and COCC, and working with students on their interests. And if there's not a company that meets the interest needs of that student, she'll go out and she'll find, she'll see if she can find something. Working in all different areas of the community. Tech Zoomers is one thing. I think had like 10 high school students go out to the senior center here recently and help them with technology and email and whatever else that they needed help with. So apparently it was really fun, great connection. Not only on the tech side, but those of us and those who are older, I'll say it that way, I guess, really have a lot to offer no matter how old we get, as long as we can still connect. And the youth need that. And so that was really cool to see. So anyway, I did want to touch on the Youth Career Connect program.
For the kids, does the pizza company have an over-the-counter on site where they can just go in and buy it, or do you have to go to the store?
I don't know yet. That's a great question, whether they have a retail component planned or not. I'll find out.
Submit that to the
Absolutely.
I'll wrap us up. We're a couple minutes over.
Oh,
Steve,
sorry.
thank you.
No, you're good.
I mean, many of you all know this. I'm already involved in the Ready board with Steve, and was it 3,000 jobs, 52 million in the pipeline. What was the summary from just the last 6 years, though?
101.
101 million
Yep.
capital expenditure.
Over 100 million.
So I really firmly, this is where I spend the rest of my time outside of work and family. Kiwanis is here because there's a lot of good things that those numbers and Steve and John and Edco do to help support our community. So
Yep.
thanks for being here.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. All right.
Hey,
Don't forget t-shirts.